The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Marcus Chen's penthouse office, each drop like a tiny fist demanding attention he couldn't give. 10 years. 10 years since he'd made the biggest mistake of his life. And still, every storm brought her back to him. Sarah's laugh echoing in his memory, her gentle hands that could calm his restless mind, her eyes that saw past his wealth to the scared kid from Chinatown who'd clawed his way to the top of Silicon Valley. He'd been 28 then, drowning in the success of his first tech startup, working 18-hour days and sleeping in his car more often than his bed. Sarah had been the night nurse at the clinic where he'd stumbled in after collapsing from exhaustion. She hadn't recognized him from Forbes magazine covers or tech blogs. To her, he was just another overworked young man who needed someone to tell him to slow down. "Money can't buy you a new body when this one gives out," she'd said, checking his blood pressure with those steady, caring hands. Her scrubs were faded, her sneakers worn thin, but her smile could have powered half of San Francisco. They'd fallen in love over stolen moments between her shifts and his meetings. Coffee at 3 a.m. in empty diners, walks through Golden Gate Park when the fog rolled in thick and gray, conversations that stretched until dawn about dreams and fears and the kind of life they wanted to build together. For 6 months, Marcus had glimpsed what it meant to be truly happy, not just successful, but success was a jealous mistress, and when venture capitalists came knocking with offers that could turn his small company into an empire, Marcus made his choice. He told himself it was temporary, that once he secured the funding, once he proved himself, he'd have time for love, he'd have time for Sarah. "I need space to think," he'd told her one gray morning, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. "This is all moving too fast." Sarah had nodded, tears gathering in her eyes like morning dew. "I understand," she'd whispered, though they both knew she didn't. How could she understand that he was terrified of loving someone more than his ambition? That every moment with her made him want to choose her over everything he'd worked for? He'd watched her walk away that day, her shoulders straight despite the trembling in her voice when she'd said goodbye. He told himself he'd call her in a week, maybe 2, just enough time to get the deal signed, to prove he could balance it all. He never called. 3 months later, when guilt finally drove him to the clinic, they told him Sarah had quit. No forwarding address, no goodbye message. She'd simply vanished from his life as completely as morning mist, leaving only the ache of what might have been. Marcus threw himself into work with the desperation of a man trying to outrun his own heart. Chen Technologies grew from a small startup to a multi-billion-dollar empire. He appeared on magazine covers, spoke at conferences, dated supermodels and celebrities who looked beautiful beside him at charity galas. But late at night, in the silence of his empty penthouse, he still heard Sarah's laugh. He'd hired private investigators twice over the years, but they'd found nothing. Sarah Martinez had disappeared as thoroughly as if she'd never existed, taking with her the only real happiness Marcus had ever known. Now, at 38, Marcus Chen was worth $12 billion and felt poorer than he had sleeping in his car. The storm outside seemed to mock his success, rattling windows that cost more than most people's houses while he sat alone with his regrets. The intercom buzzed, sharp and insistent. "Mr. Chen?" His assistant's voice carried an unusual note of uncertainty. "There's a call for you. The woman says it's urgent. Something about children?" Marcus frowned. He donated millions to children's charities, but those calls went through proper channels, not directly to his private line. "Put her through." The voice that came through the speaker hit him like a physical blow. Older, wearier, but unmistakably the same voice that had once told him bedtime stories about brave knights and kind dragons. "Hello, Marcus." "Sarah?" The name escaped him in a whisper, 10 years of careful composure crumbling in an instant. "I'm sorry to call like this. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I didn't have a choice. There's something you need to know." Marcus gripped the phone so tightly his knuckles went white. "Where are you? Are you okay? I looked for you." "Yeah." "Marcus, please, just listen." Her voice carried a weight that made his chest tight. "I have children, twins. They're 9 years old, and they're in the hospital." The world seemed to tilt sideways. "Children? They need surgery. Both of them. Experimental treatment that insurance won't cover, the doctors say without it." Her voice broke, and Marcus heard the sound of someone trying not to cry. "They're good kids. Marcus, so smart and funny and brave. They deserve a chance to grow up. Sarah, of course I'll help, whatever you need, whatever it costs. That's not why I'm calling. She took a shaky breath. The hospital needs medical history from both parents. For the surgery, they need to know about genetic factors, hereditary conditions, everything. A cold realization began to settle in Marcus's stomach. Both parents? Marcus, Sarah whispered, and in that whisper he heard 10 years of secrets, 10 years of carrying a burden alone. On their medical forms, under father, I listed your name. The phone slipped from Marcus's nerveless fingers, clattering onto his mahogany desk. Through the rushing in his ears, he heard Sarah's voice continuing, distant and tinny through the speaker. I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks after you said you needed space. I was going to tell you, but then I saw the article in TechCrunch about your big funding round, about how you were the youngest billionaire in Silicon Valley. I saw the picture of you at that gala with that actress, and I realized you'd made your choice. Marcus fumbled for the phone, his hands shaking. Sarah, why didn't you? What was I supposed to do? The pain in her voice was raw, unfiltered. Show up at your office with a positive pregnancy test and demand you choose between me and your dreams? You'd already told me you needed space. I would have chosen you, Marcus said, the words torn from somewhere deep in his chest. God, Sarah, I would have chosen you and them, always. I know that now, she whispered. But I was 26 and scared and so in love with you that I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was setting you free to become who you were meant to be. Marcus closed his eyes, seeing his life stretch out behind him like a wasteland of missed opportunities. 10 years of board meetings and profit margins was somewhere in the world. His child Rena were growing up without him. Where are you? He asked, already reaching for his keys. Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Marcus, there's something else you should know. They don't know about you. I told them their father was a good man who died before they were born. I couldn't explain. I didn't know how to tell them that their father was alive but didn't know they existed. What are their names? Marcus whispered. Elena and David. Her voice softened with love. Elena has your eyes, Marcus, and your stubborn streak. She wants to be an engineer, builds these incredible structures out of Legos and cardboard. David is gentler, like me. He loves books and writes these amazing stories about dragons who solve problems with kindness instead of fire. Marcus was already moving toward the door, his assistant looking up in surprise as he strode past her desk. I'm coming to Philadelphia tonight. Marcus, wait. You don't understand. The surgery is experimental, and even if it works, there's a chance they might not make it. I don't want you to meet them just to lose them. He stopped in the doorway, Sarah's words hitting him like a physical blow. But beneath the fear, something else was rising, a fierce, protective love he'd never experienced before. Sarah, I've spent 10 years living like a coward, too afraid to fight for what mattered most. I'm not going to start by running away from my children when they need me. His voice grew stronger with each word. They're going to make it. All of us are going to make it. And then we're going to figure out how to be a family. Marcus, I love you, he said, the words he'd been too frightened to say 10 years ago finally breaking free. I never stopped loving you, and I already love them. Sarah, I love Elena's stubborn streak and David's kind dragons, and I love you for raising them to be amazing when I was too blind to see what was right in front of me. The silence stretched between them, filled with 10 years of hurt and hope and the possibility of redemption. Room 412. Sarah finally whispered. They're in room 412. I'll be there in 4 hours, Marcus said, already calculating flight times in his head. Sarah, we're going to get through this, all of us, together. As he raced toward the elevator, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in a decade. The absolute certainty that he was finally heading toward home, not the penthouse filled with expensive emptiness, but toward the place where his heart had been waiting all along. The storm outside was beginning to clear, and for the first time in 10 years, Marcus Chen believed in happy endings.